Welcome back to Advertising is Dead with Vikas. Hi, Vikas. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Varun, for having me. Really a pleasure to be here.
Uh, you know, one of the things when I was running through not just your journey and whatever little bit of research I was doing, and the more I did, I saw there's so much more to kind of tap into your mind to understand. But what I also found interesting is that you've seen an entire curve in how learning and education functions. So I'd love to start off by saying, how do you see the journey of how education has progressed happen?
So, Varun, I think let's start from the history of learning.
Mhm.
So, if you say from thousands of years, what we have seen is the whole Guru Shishya Parampara, the whole model of a guru teaching you and you go to a Gurukul and learn,
Yeah.
was the starting of learning, and that has been for thousands of years. That changed into a school or a college model where you again go to a school, which is like a Gurukul. It could be a day school or a boarding school, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you have teachers or gurus teaching you. And that, again, model, you added a bit of technology to it. They added some. So the learning was still from a teacher to a student, but with added on bells and whistles of technology and whatnot. But this focus got disrupted dramatically in the last 24 months, if I say, post-pandemic. So no longer you are able to go to a school. No longer there is a physical interaction. No longer you can be monitored in the class by a teacher directly. Now you are all in a world where it is more like a peer learning, not a teacher-based learning. I think that disruption which has happened has been very much forced upon into the whole world of education. And everybody struggled initially. Just getting on Zoom to start a class is not a replacement of a class. Okay. The question is, when you go to a class, you are not learning from the teacher itself. You are learning from your friends. You are learning in a small cohort. You are learning in a group. You are learning from your peers. Now, that was missing. And the third problem was, when you are in the class, you are also afraid of being left behind. So you look at your friend who's doing the problem faster than you, say, oh, I should also do it, so I have to go and learn more. So all of that, I'll say, incentives to learn and incentives to learn more were gone. And learning now became self-motivation based. So when I say self-motivation based, what I meant was that you have to motivate yourself and then use tools from outside. It could be a live class. It could be a recording of a class. It could be from the internet. So you have to become self-motivated to absorb that knowledge. And you have to be motivated enough that you know better than others. Now, what is better than others? You still don't know. You're still struggling because at the end of the day, you are just learning what you know is best. So all of these disruptions which have happened has made the whole journey of learning so interesting, scary, but also an opportunity and a challenge all in one. So this is a pandemic in itself. So from my perspective, the way this disruption is equal to a pandemic, and everybody is finding their way. So let me put it this way. Learning was more like a straight line earlier. Okay. Now it is chaotic, and it is really chaotic. And what I say to people is, you have to find patterns in the chaos. If you are able to find patterns in the chaos, you will figure out where you want to go. Otherwise, the straight line model of teacher coming and teaching and giving you something is going away and will go. And it will last the pandemic. It is not going to say, okay, it is a small term thing. It will last forever. And this is something where I feel both learners as well as institutions will both need to look in terms of what they want to achieve out of this and what they see as an opportunity, as a threat.
You raised an interesting point about the straight line. I think that's so important, because when I talk to anyone who's not even like, let's not even go to 16, 17. If you talk to a 12-year-old today, a 12-year-old has learned in some cases how to code. Some of them are trying to understand personal finance at an age when I didn't even know what personal finance meant. Right. And as that has kind of grown and progressed, you're then seeing them come to school and then being taught, like imagine a kid who has learned how to code and then come to school and you're being taught the basics of computers. When that's kind of flipped around, and do you see this getting a lot more personalized as we go ahead? Because as we move into this system, all of us have different ranges of what we're learning, what we're interested in, and where we're going. So the traditional industrial system of let's get everybody in a classroom, like we said, and then teach them all. Now each of them are individual focuses, individual areas of where they're going. So how do you see that kind of coming together?
So if you look at this, students were given a fixed curriculum earlier, and that's the way still the whole school and college education is. However, disruptions are already happening. So now you will see the new education policy of the government of India also. There is a big focus towards liberal arts, because you can't create mechanical outcomes in education. It has to be much more, I'll say, the part where your human brain actually contributes need to be given more importance than the mechanical repeatable jobs.
Yeah.
So we even in Wiley published a book a few years ago, What Will You Do If Machines Will Do Everything?
Yeah.
And what we found out with a lot of research was anything which is repeatable and doable manually will become commoditized, and which is happening.
Yeah.
But the human mind will always be in the forefront of what a machine learned computer or a system can do, or an AI system can do. And what I mean by that is that if you look at people at large, their mind will be much beyond what is taught in the past. It is futuristic looking.
Yeah.
Machine learning patterns only work based on what data is available today. Okay.
Correct.
They may process it faster, but they are giving you what is available today. Human mind takes this data and predicts. I think the innovation of humankind, the innovation of brain, is something which still machines cannot work on. So if you really want to look at learning, you have to look at that everybody will find their own sweet spot where they are good at, instead of being pushed a curriculum which is every one size fits all. So I don't say that we will not, the school education system will change, but I feel after the basic school education, the college education system is changing, and many colleges are going that route where you pick and develop your own course as you study. So you are not bound by a set of courses. So that's one. Second is the role of technology in all of this. What we have seen in COVID is that educational institutions are providing a combination of live classes and what is called a flipped class. In a flipped class, you learn the basics because that's recorded. And the live class, even on Zoom, is becoming now more of a problem solving and a class where you learn from others in terms of what do they feel about it.
Yeah.
That models of learning are much more, I'll say, productive from building a better workforce and better use of mind, I'll use the word. Now, that is where it is going. Now, can we do it overnight, the whole thing? We can't. But what is happening here is all of these things are allowing new kind of jobs, new kind of careers, new kind of skill sets that were not even relevant like 2 or 4 years ago. Okay, that kind of a thing is something which has been unprecedented in the whole world of learning. And to have a model where there is no fixed syllabus or subject, and you can learn and you can contribute and you can show, and you are graded based on that, is something which is really interesting. Now, if you see even the job market, many of the forward-looking companies like Google and Facebook, they don't even say you have a university degree or not. You say, this is my entry exam. If you can pass it, you are an applicant. We don't care you are 10th pass, 12th pass, no exam, no school, nothing. Okay. So they say, if you can do this, I think we need you. So it is your ability to do certain things which will change. Another thing which is changing and dramatically changing is, should you do a full-time job or not? What stops you not doing become a master of one, do that few hours a day or few days a week or few months a year. And you can earn enough to either upskill yourself or do what you not want to do as your hobby and things like that. So that is the new generation you will see emerging out of this COVID 5 years, 3 years down the line, that they will never take a full-time job ever in their life. I think these are the things which you are seeing is the immediate outcome of what's happening. These are short-term outcomes. Some long-term, medium-term outcomes are also coming in that, do you even need a degree? Or do you even need to go to college?
Yeah.
That's a different discussion. But what is important is everybody needs to find their relevant spot in this new world. Nothing can be taken for granted.
Yeah.
This includes students, this includes teachers, this includes institutions, this includes other ways we learn. Everybody is finding their sweet spot.
Yeah. You know, when you look at this entire disruption happening, would that be one of the reasons why as well, in many ways you moved from what was traditionally a publishing focused company to a technology center, almost an EdTech space? And so I'd love to hear from you how that journey kind of happened, and how we kind of build out which areas to focus on. Because I find this whole point of what industry 4.0 skills as so interesting, because how do you pick what is the future, and also then how do you kind of do that transition as a company?
So this is a great question, and I think let's look at it at different levels in terms of how we answer it.
Yeah.
So as I told you, for thousands of years you need a book. At least now a book. It used to be maybe some leaves of sheets earlier, but now that became a book.
Yeah.
And a teacher and a class, and that's what you needed.
Yeah.
In the last, I'll say 15 years or so, when technology became mainstream, you had added advantage of some homework management systems, some LMSs, some recordings of, and some access to other materials, references and all, which you were using. That was what education was. COVID disrupted that. Now, what it disrupted was that the book or the content was not the center of learning anymore. So if you are becoming a periphery of learning, how can you sustain and grow a business and become big?
True.
So you have to change your model from that to a provider of the complete solution of learning. So when you use the word EdTech, that's a very interesting word.
Yeah.
Education and technology.
Yeah.
So earlier, before COVID, I'll say, there were companies which were tech companies or techies in startups who invested because they came from a technology background, and they say, we will build a beautiful platform and we will put some content in it. They invested 90% of their money in technology, even if they are a startup, and they spend 10% of their money in content.
Yeah.
Publishing companies on the other side before this were spending the opposite. They spent 90% of their money on content and 10% on technology. Now, what it created was a solution, beautiful tech heavy from the tech companies, but really horrible in content. And on the publishing side, beautiful content, but the platform is
really bad.
I'll say. So what this is doing is that you are now spending equally on both, because both have become equally important. And that is the reason a lot of solutions which are created are being a combination. Now that can happen by investment or by collaborating.
Yeah.
Now EdTech companies understand that education companies and technology companies need to work together. To build this content will be decades for you. To build this technology will be again years for us. And nobody has the expertise of other. So let's bring it together. And that's what you are seeing happening even in the EdTech space. Companies which started only online are becoming hybrid. They want to buy content. They want to buy brick and mortar training institutions. They're buying, and I will not name, but you are seeing what's happening in the whole space. So everything and anything they stood for, you should not learn in a training center, are buying now training centers or training companies. So what is important, what I'm trying to say is, the future is a combination of all. And you need to have a combination of that classroom feeling. You need a combination of self-learning, technology enabled. So the future is becoming a combination. And if you can create by either acquiring or by collaborating a solution like that. So that is where the journey of Wiley into WileyNXT. That was one journey where we solved that. Then the third solution was the job. So how do you get them jobs also? So, okay. So we said, why don't we become the providers of those jobs and then work with global corporations and say, we can provide you talent, which we can keep on upskilling even if they are at your job. So our model of a job is not about job for life. We work with you only for a year or two into your first job. And we say, okay, I will keep on upskilling you to the level so that continuous learning is coming from us. So that within 2 years, we improve your learning quotient in a way that you then figure out what you want to do in your life yourself. Then you are not dependent on anybody. That's the kind of generation we are going after, where I can say your college you went to or institution you went to is important. It opens the doors, but it is not a key to success. We say wherever you come from, if you work hard, you can achieve, if not equal, but more if you keep on doing so. I think that democratization of education, learning, as well as the job market is happening for the first time. Because nowhere now even you see, if you go to US, they no longer require a SAT or a GMAT or a GRE at all. Why are they waving it off? Because they have found other ways to check students who matter instead of an exam. So this exam-based learning is becoming more and more irrelevant in the future. But that doesn't mean it will not happen, because sometimes when you have million people applying for 10 or 100 positions, you still need some kind of an assessment to bring the to eliminate, because you can't physically do that for everybody. But so it will change. But what I mean is, it is democratized. It is very democratized. Learning is democratized. I can get access to a top professor from Stanford teaching me on a course online. I don't have to go to Stanford for it. So I think that model of democratization of learning and education and not dependent on a university degree is, for me, is where the world is going. Having said that, the current models will remain, but these disruptions will become more and more mainstream as we go ahead.
You know, I literally have, I think, 3 to 4 follow-ups to all that you've just said, but I know we need to go in for a break. So I'm just going to quickly do that and we'll come right back to Advertising is Dead.
Sure. Thanks.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead, with Vikas. Vikas, right before we went into the break, there are a few points you made. I thought that's very interesting to look at. One is the fact that, the traditional system in many ways was the fact that you would go get a degree and then you'd go, almost like you get educated, then you go get a job.
Yeah.
What you are almost changing that model to saying you get educated, and then while you start off your career, you're continuing to get educated and progress on that front, which is honestly how I feel most professions require right now, because everything changes in the next 3 months, 6 months, year, in that sense, in every profession. What does that then do to the university system? While people will still need degrees to get jobs, while they'll still need that, how will universities have to evolve in terms of, because they would always function in a silo in that sense, right? Now they need to be a lot more embedded into organizations and what they need, students and what they're looking at doing. So in many ways, I mean, it's like you said, it's a pandemic level disruption. So if I'm someone building a university as part of a university today, or building a company in that sense, how do I kind of then take my mind away from how things have been to what it requires right now?
Okay, so let me put it this way. As a university, the model was you get a degree, you get an MBA, and then what was called as the royalty for life.
Yeah.
I've done a top MBA from a top school. Now that MBA is my royalty for the brand I am, and I can get paid for it. Now your business is getting disrupted on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and a yearly basis. The models of yesterday are not relevant anymore, or they are becoming irrelevant day by day. So you have to upskill yourself, because that's the only way you will survive on your job. Now, for that, companies started working long time ago on models like L&D departments inside the companies. But they were for a specific skill, a tool or something which you wanted internally. I feel companies or corporations and universities should collaborate in a way that this continuous upskilling and learning should be given to the university instead of trying to do it in-house. That's not the job of a corporation to do these departments internally. They're in the business of creating value. They're not in the business of creating content or learning or trainers. So if universities say, why don't I create a model where to your set of people for this corporation or a set of corporations who have common kind of skills requirement, we will provide this upskilling on a regular basis, and we will keep on upskilling and certifying your people. And since we are a third party, it is not internal, our certificate will have some value. And a set of these certificates can become degrees. If you do these many credits or these many courses, you can do this extra thing and get a degree. So this stackable education, as I call it, will become a norm. And it is starting to happen in US in many colleges. I hope that as per the new education policy, that is there in the policy. So you will see Indian institutions also going the same way. So you will not be an alumni of a college. You will be a continuous learner of a set of institutions, depending upon where you are and what you are doing. So that's one major disruption. Second is, again, the same thing I call about is democratization. If everybody has access to everything, that name alone doesn't carry any meaning. The idea is you have to be better than as a person, and you have to do something more. So what I mean by that is, as the world will change, the minimum expectation of a person will keep on increasing. Earlier, knowing a language was enough. Then your health was enough. I'll give you an analogy that somebody gave when I was in one of the seminars. He used this word called athletic Gavaskar. He said, earlier, if you want to be in an Indian team, two bowlers, one slip fielder, one this thing. So if you were good in one, you got a job in a cricket. Today, in the Virat Kohli's team, if I do an analogy, everyone is absolutely super fit. Everybody is an excellent fielder. Everybody should know batting or bowling or whatever. But what else? If you don't have what else, there are still 100 waiting in the line. So the idea of that, you need to be the best in one, but very good in others, is a well-rounded person, is what will happen in the job market also, and already happening in the job market. Second is, are you the first? Or are you the laggard? Or are you the person who did it before anybody else? That's the second where you start to get premiums. So premium means what you can do today could be done by machines 3 years from now. So you have to be continuously upskilling in new things. So that is where you will say 20-year experience doesn't count. 40-year experience doesn't count. You may be a 25-year-old and you can do this. I can very well become your boss because I'm able to do this and you are unable to. So I think this kind of thing will create more, I'll say, fight for the spot. Think earlier you were able to solve it just because you went and studied somewhere, or you were privileged or non-privileged. But now everybody is in the same boat. Only the best one will survive. But that doesn't mean others will not. But the competition is becoming more global now instead of local. I'll use that word.
This is one point you brought up, right? So which I've been thinking about a lot in recent times, that if you're I'm not even saying young, but if you're anybody who wants a professional career today, how do you decide, or rather, how do you pick the skill set that you know will be relevant tomorrow? And how do you kind of constantly keep a track of that? How do you kind of pick it up? So for instance, how do you as a business say, okay, this is what people need to upskill on, which way I need to tie up there? How do you kind of look at that almost like a Because it's almost crystal ball gazing in some senses, right? So how do you kind of do that crystal ball gazing?
It is, I'll not say it's crystal ball gazing. It is educated risk, I will use the word.
Okay.
So let me put it this way. We were for 200 years, if I talk about Wiley, we have been in publishing, and that's the only thing we did. So we are about 213, 14 years now in existence, and 200 out of those 214 years, we were only doing publishing.
Yeah.
Okay. We also produce books, best kind books and journals and research content. Disruptions happened. We say, okay, let's change. We started getting into building courses with for universities. We started building digital assets for universities to learn. We started then collaborating with universities and started working on online degrees with them. Then we said, no, we will go into the upskilling. Skilling market is also required because just university degree is not enough. And then we said, okay, let's go that, because every time is the customer or the market which is telling us what is required of the person who gets out of this college. So the expectation of that person getting out of the college kept on increasing again and again, and that's increasing day by day. Now, if I can provide that bridge between what you learned in college and what you got for a job, I am in a bridge education business, as I call myself. Okay. Now let's talk about my skill sets. Nobody taught me AI and platforms and all when I started publishing. I understood content. I understood what is good content. I understood what is domain expertise in some content. And we used to have editors and proofreaders, and we were designing books and subject matter experts. Now it is about building a visual experience, building a business experience, which is, you will say, is based on AI, based on adaptive learning. You need to build an experience which is usable anywhere, everywhere for different skill sets. You need to go to a level that if you are starting from, say, level 1, but somebody is already at level 3, why should that person do level 1 and 2? So you need to be adaptive. All these skills, nobody taught us. Okay. So true. And all these skills, we didn't even knew how to even build something like that. So you have to keep on educating yourself from others, learning from what others are doing. That may not be relevant partially or fully, but you get a lot of learnings from others, what they are trying to do and trying to solve a problem. You bring it together, you build a set of people, you bring people in a team who have combinations of all, and you start building something. Then you do something, you get a bit comfortable in that, then another disruption comes. So then what do I do now? Because now it is not an add-on, it's mainstream. So every time, even now in a traditional business of publishing, we are becoming, technology becomes the foundation of anything we are doing. Contrary to what people feel, it is the truth. Now, how do you say, what is the next step? The next step is, how do you make it better and better? It is just like evolution of a cell phone. See, when cell phones came, what was the disruption? First it was keyboard, then it became screen. But in the last 10 years, you get a better screen, better camera, better this, better that. It's a software and hardware evolution is happening, but it is speed, quality, and that's all. So you go through a phase where I have to improve quality, outcomes, learning, then another disruption will come. And then we have to go back on the drawing board again because, oh, now do you even need a phone? Now people say, do you even need a computer? Because a phone is equal to a computer now. Add a screen to it. I think that's the only thing, that it's a 7-inch screen. So do you need a computer? So as you will evolve, it's not me alone in education. Everybody in any business they are in the same problem. Somebody will disrupt you, then you have to go back on the drawing board. So if you can create an agile learning ability, you can create an ability to understand that if you are in a soft drinks market, a Coke and Pepsi may not be your competitor, but water is also your competitor, and tea is also your competitor, and some other new age drink is your competitor. Or anything which quenches your thirst could be a tablet tomorrow which quenches the thirst and does the same thing. So if I look at competition like that, then you start to get much better ideas about how the future disruptions would look like. So I have to find my patterns in the chaos. And the goal is still to make you successful. If I'm going in that goal, I think we are in the right track.
In the middle of finding these patterns, what has surprised you about how this space has evolved? I think that's because as many as many educated risk taking, like you said, you kind of put together, or educated forecasting that you do, there will still be pieces that you like. I never expected it to evolve in this way, either from the person who wants to get educated to the person teaching to the systems. What has surprised you in terms of an aspect that has evolved?
Okay, so this is a great question because say 10 years ago or 5 years ago, if somebody used to come and did a pitch as a startup to me, okay, and this I will take this online, I'll say, yeah, but without teachers, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And maybe today, if I think and I look back, I say, I should have collaborated with them at that time. Okay. Okay. That's one way of thinking. The second way of thinking is people at that side who came always thought technology was important, and they did not give us a fair share for what we were bringing on the table. So they will be thinking the same. So one is that the disruption, when it comes, it actually disrupts everybody. It's not only one part of the ecosystem which gets disrupted. And then if you create a new ecosystem in itself, like, can I create a stackable degree where you don't need to go to a college and I get a government approval to do so, say, for example. If tomorrow the government says, we will approve this stackable education and you don't need to go to a college, then whatever everybody in colleges and everybody is thinking is irrelevant because there is a new disruptor in town. So that's one challenge. Second challenge is generally within the industry, evolution happens. Disruption happens from outside the industry. It is never be the same guy who was in the industry and created a disruption, because they, in order to survive, have to keep on evolving to keep the bills up, keep paying the bills and doing the business. It's a disruptor who has nothing to lose, who will say, I have nothing to lose, I'm doing this. Okay. Now, that's one. Now, what's the biggest disruption in education? Free content. What do you need to pay? So free content, free learning is the biggest disruption. Now, how do you beat something which is free?
So true.
Okay. So now for us, the challenge was, like in the music industry, piracy became the big challenge. For us, piracy is a big challenge, but they disrupted in a way. Let's not make money from the album that will be downloaded, but we will do shows and memorabilia and other things where we get paid for it. So people will come and pay for a show, not for my record or for my album. So that changed the whole industry, and they evolved. You are saying, okay, if the base content is free, or my heart is free, which is the Google model, that Google does not charge you for their biggest IP, the search engine. They do not charge you. So can we, in a free world, create a model where we give away our heart or the heart of our IP, but charge for the services we bring on the table? Means, can I create a better assessment for you? Can I create a personalized learning path for you? Content is available free. If you want flat content, available free. But if you want a dynamic learning experience, so then people start to pay maybe small numbers, maybe not the same amount as paying for a whole book, but your users may become 100-fold or 1,000-fold, and the world becomes your market. So you have to find constantly involved. There is nothing called this business will have a 5-year plan. Nowadays we talk about in COVID, we were doing a quarterly plan. We did not even do a yearly plan because we don't know what's happening 3 months from now.
Yeah, so true.
So all of this you are seeing happening, it's happening to all industries. So you will see some businesses flourishing, some models flourishing in learning, some models will be really obsolete, some models will adapt, hybrid kinds. So you will see all of them having a way, but in the end, each of this model will have a group of audience wanting that. And that's what people need to understand is, yes, there could be a market for, say, books alone, if I talk as a publisher. market will be too small and too irrelevant for him. But there will be a market.
Hmm.
There will be a market for hybrid learning. Maybe that's the biggest sweet spot for me, where I may not to fight a big giant on one side, which is giving it everything free.
Yeah.
My hybrid is my sweet spot. So everybody needs to find their sweet spots. And if you can, that's a big market in itself.
That's true. Someone said the other day that you need to find your pond in the middle of the ocean, and because the pond will still have enough value as a business that you don't have to go looking for the ocean.
No, very well said. I will use this analogy next time.
And while you're talking, I was thinking about one thing. Most times I feel that as you go more customized, in many ways, you're putting the onus on the person who is taking this as a service. So till now, if I was a student till even 10 years ago, you had a very like straightforward, like you would choose which school basis a few things. Then you would choose, honestly, like when I was growing up, they were just like, are you going to be an engineer? Are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be do commerce? And maybe if you didn't do well, you would do arts. And your choices were limited to that, etc. Now, as you go towards this personalized, stackable format, the onus is on me to choose how I want to customize it for myself. And what I have noticed is there are a lot of people in the age bracket of someone who's 16, 17, who's saying, oh, maybe I just want to be a content creator. Maybe I shouldn't go to a degree, but my parents want me to do this. But I don't know how I should make this choice. And I see that question coming up a lot now because there are people who are confused as to what their choice should be. So if you have to turn around and say, basis what you're seeing, what would almost be the parameters to which someone should make those choices in terms of at least how do you build your own framework for your education in that sense?
Okay, so let me put it this way. We are in an evolving world where everything is not changing at the same pace. Okay, till the time, if 90% of the jobs are still based on a degree, then if you are one of the 90%, you have to still go through the process of a degree.
Yeah.
Okay. 10% jobs will change in phase one, say for example, where degree is not important, but are you the best in that so that you don't need a degree to prove who you are?
Fair.
Okay. So I go by the logic, it doesn't matter what you choose, but you have to be one of the best in that, at least in your own mind. And in reality, at least I know this really well. It is not about the marks. It's about, I think I know this quite well. I've really worked hard in what I'm achieving. So it is the age of specialization, not commodity. If you really want that, I want to do a normal job, which is fair. It's your life choice. And many people will do that. Then you have to go through the process, which is the normal process.
Yeah.
So that's one way of looking at it. Now, when you talk about the role of technology, role of AI, let's understand technology is an enabler in two forms. One is, what do I want to study? I can use technology to give a career path logic based on, okay, these are the areas I am good at. So let's create an assessment structure. What can be good for me from jobs of tomorrow and jobs which may come in the future and today. Okay. And for that, these are the skills and knowledges I need. And if I can combine them together, I can be a person whom I want to be. Fair enough. You can always revisit this every few months or every 6 months or every year and change. So I may go for a different path. So I've learned this. What else would I need to learn? So that's the way logically people should do.
Yeah.
But there is another part to it. When you say education is personalized, the role of technology and AI and machine learning also is, assume you are learning, you are trying to do data analytics today, say for example, and you are doing this problem wrong 5 times. In a typical normal system, it will be, oh, so you don't know this topic. Say, let's assume you are learning in a college, you don't know this topic.
Yeah.
Okay. And you are given by the system saying, okay, you couldn't do it, go and learn this topic. However, if you are in a micro learning model which uses AI, the AI in the system will trigger, are you doing a mistake in data analytics, or you are not solving from a statistics problem? It's a mathematical issue, or is it an issue of you're not understanding the topic? I'm just giving a very simplistic view of it.
Yeah.
So I'll say, no, maybe you are not knowing how to solve this kind of equation. Okay. solve this equation, all your logic is right. Solve this equation, so you learn this. Now, how I have changed and personalized your learning from the learning side, what you want to learn. So technology can help both ways now. One is what you want to learn, but when you are learning, I can make it specialized for you, personalized for you in a way. Then you say, I like learning from a video. Some will say, no, I like learning from a content. Again, you can use a platform which can help you to mix and match and give you the same outcome based on your likeness of learning. I think that is where the world is going. It is not there yet. People are working, multiple models are coming, but you will see in the next 5 to 10 years that becoming mainstream, and a lot of work is going on in that direction.
How did your journey in learning and education start? Is this what you set out to do and be, and how did that kind of start off?
So that was interesting. So when I was doing, so publishing was a family business for more than 2 generations before me. So the idea was to do publishing, and publishing was all about, as you said, arts. And at that time that you have a journalistic tendency or what you have. I'm talking about 40 years ago when I was trying to do whatever I was doing in school. Now, but I took a decision to do engineering at that time. Okay, because I like want to do engineering. Okay, which was again at that time a bit unheard. And okay, so I did it. Now I said I've done engineering. So then I said, okay, let me understand some publishing also. But I've learned in family businesses there. So I did a master's in publishing also at that time. I went abroad and did one of the masters. But you come back and you start working in a publishing business, which is very old-fashioned and traditional. And you say, what do I do here now? So you started adding a bit of technology in publishing processes and like got a desktop publishing system or things like that at that time. I'm talking at that time. But the heart was, can I improve publishing? So in 1999, I founded a company which created a model to do online learning when there was no streaming or no broadband. And we were funded by a US company to do so. And we built this, and this site was called examcram.com. Examcram.com.
Okay.
It was a US based site. We built all the technology to run the courses on that. And it became quite famous, and we sold it for a good amount of money at that time. But the idea was that seeded the idea that technology can be used to improve learning processes. So that has been the starting part of this. So it started from there. Then I came back, sold that company, Wiley Publishing, came and did this joint venture with Wiley, and then exited the joint venture, but still run it because I like what I'm doing. But what has happened in all of this is the bent of mind is still there that I've done 3 startups now and sold 3 startups up till now. Publishing is one of them. So the idea is that the role of technology now in actual skill building instead of just knowledge transfer is where the future lies. So because I always use the word knowledge can get you a job, but knowledge will never make you a master. Okay, you can bluff your way in a meeting by your knowledge, but you have to do something to be relevant to get that job. Okay, so doing is where the future lies. If doing becomes the center point of learning, then degrees and that kind of education becomes irrelevant. I think that is where the mind now goes. So you keep on understanding. So what your past experiences are teaching you is that, but you have no clue about what to do about it. When you are learning and you are adapting and you meet people, you learn from people, and you read and you see and observe and see how people work. So this has been the continuous learning journey. So that was one thing. And I was not the smartest person in the class. Let's be very, very clear. So the idea was you have to be, it is difficult for non-smart people like me to really make an effort to learn a new thing. But I think now in the last, I'll say 15 years or so, my learnability has increased dramatically. I can learn new things very fast. And I think that is the differentiator. It's not about that I'm the smartest. No. maybe I am the first one to start something, or one of the few early ones. I think that is the advantage now, nothing else. It is more about people can learn what I can learn. So there's no, it's about what you should learn and when you should learn is equally important now.
As we come towards the end of every episode, I ask all my guests a set of questions. These are not necessarily about the work; it's more about you as an individual. And these questions haven't changed across all the episodes I've done, which is why I find them fun, because at some point it's a standard set of questions, but the answers are always varied because of the people I'm talking to. What beyond what you do in your day job, what do you spend a lot of time, focused on? It could be consuming something, could be doing something. What is that one point that you focus a lot of time and energy on?
Okay, I'll say not a lot, but I do focus. So my wife is a fashion designer, and I am her biggest critique. So I really get into the details of what she designs and how. So that's one thing I do quite a lot. Also, I spend a lot of time on building skilling solutions for underprivileged. So we run 2 centers, one in Delhi and one in Khatni in Madhya Pradesh, where we have created a model of upskilling people in orphanages, in one case, and also people in slums, where we create something of unique, like in Delhi, one we bring in kids who are 14 and 18-year-olds roaming around in a slum, but we bring them together, free training, free learning for about a year course, and all these things like job-based learning. And then in the end, we give them a complete kit to start their own business.
Wow.
So what comes out of that is, like, for example, I remember the last, and we do this, COVID has stopped many things in the last 1 year. But the last one, when we did just before COVID in February, was the time where we went and my global team was also here, and we went together. And a parent came to me that both my daughters did this course with you. They are now both earning, and both of them are getting married now. And I did not pay any dowry because they are earning themselves. For me, that is now dowry is good or bad. I am not here to judge, because that is between them. But what I'm saying is, I was able to make a difference, and we are doing that for more than 1,000 such people every year. So it is a small number for a global standard or even Indian standard, but a small bit we do, giving back to the society. That's what I do.
Giving them independence, I feel, is the real. Giving you independence, I feel, is one of the best things from what you're saying, is that if you're still between systems that to function with dowry, etc., and all those pieces, but you're still saying I'm independent now, gives them the ability to say no to it. It gives them the ability to almost make their life on their own terms. So that's fabulous what you're doing there.
See, I always believe that this model of giving money to people is wrong. Spending money to make them employable is what the future is. And I think that is where the focus should be, that instead of giving money, which you can give gifts and donations and things like that, but I believe personally, at even people's level, government level, the focus should be to make them employable, not giving them goodies, okay, because that will finish. Then what do you do then?
Yeah. Anything that you've read, listened to, or watched recently that you'd recommend?
So we have some very interesting books in Wiley, which are very interesting. So one is, we have this beautiful book, which I read again, was the 5 dysfunctions of a CEO, or sorry, 5 dysfunctions of a team and 5 temptations of a CEO. There are 2 books by the same author. So 5 dysfunctions of a team and 5 temptations of a CEO. That how do you tempt your, like, certain things you do because you say my gut is saying so. And so it's a very interesting analogy around. It's more like a fable. It's like a story, but you get a lot of insights even in the COVID world, where you as a leader are now not seen. You are virtual. How do you rally your people around you? How do you keep your people motivated? So a lot of reading I'm doing is that how you can make a difference being invisible.
Hmm.
So that's a lot of readings in multiple articles, multiple research papers I'm reading on. That's where keeping you busy. But these two books which I read, again, I have read them earlier also, but that was again a good learning again.
And my final question, which is generally a spin-off of the name of the podcast itself, is that why do you feel this hybrid form of learning will not die? As in, why do you feel it's here to stay, and why will we not go back to default setting?
Okay, I think the origin of mankind or womankind, I have to be fair enough, humankind, was based around that humans are social animals. Okay, so you like a combination of your own time, as you call it, but then you'll want your social time. That's true in learning. That's true in relationships. That's true in life. But till you change that, I think nothing will change. So you need a combination of both. Some may become less, some may become more. That's different.
Thank you so much, Vikas. Thank you for taking the time. It's been a fabulous conversation and tons of insights here. And looking forward to what you are doing to evolve how we learn and look forward to see how that happens. But thank you so much for coming on Advertising is Dead.
Thanks, Varun. Thanks. Really, really, really appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
IVM.